There are a number of reasons why you may have very low energy on the carnivore diet, and I'm going to list the top 6 reasons why you may have low energy on the carnivore diet. The first reason is that your breathing mechanics are off and you have some type of dysfunctional breathing pattern. A lot of people are going to either be shallow breathers or they're Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in and welcome back to another Sunday Q&A. Steven here with Team Euphoric, and today's question has to do with having low energy and not losing weight on the carnivore diet. And this comes from the World Carnivore Tribe group on Facebook, and a member had recently asked, I've been doing carnivore for about 2 weeks now and I've not seen any results. I'm always tired and haven't lost any weight. I started this for the benefits of feeling better, more energy and some weight loss. Do y'all know what could be causing me to be so tired? This is a terrific question, and this is something that actually a lot of people will experience, especially in the beginning of starting the carnivore diet, the first 2 weeks to a month. And the reason is your body has to go through an adaptation period. And if you were someone who relied heavily on carbohydrates in the past, it's going to take longer for your body to get used to this way of eating. But with regard to the questions, I want to cover it and break it down into 2 parts. The first part is going to be why am I so tired? The second part is why am I not losing weight? With regard to energy levels, there are a number of reasons why you may have very low energy on the carnivore diet. And I'm going to list the top 6 reasons why you may have low energy on the carnivore diet. The first reason is that your breathing mechanics are off and you have some type of dysfunctional breathing pattern. A lot of people are going to either be shallow breathers or they're going to have an inverted breathing pattern. What I mean by that, with regard to shallow breathing, when you are a shallow breather, that means that you're not taking full deep breaths. And when you are a shallow breather, that means that your body is going to be into more of a sympathetic state. Sympathetic meaning your fight or flight system, whereas when you take full deep diaphragmatic breaths, you are going to be in more of a parasympathetic state. When you are in a parasympathetic state, that is your rest and digest system. When you are in a sympathetic state, your cortisol levels are going to be elevated. And if you have chronically high levels of cortisol, that could definitely have an impact on your energy levels. So I'm going to include a link right up over here to a video I did last year on some diaphragmatic breathing exercises and some exercises you could do to help you get these full belly breaths. The other thing is with regard to having an inverted breathing pattern. This is something that I see all the time in my practice. A lot of patients will come to me and they have an inverted breathing pattern, meaning they are breathing in the opposite way of how they are intended to breathe. Ideally, the first 2/3 of the inhale should come from the belly expansion, the last third, the chest should expand, and then on the exhale, the opposite should be true. The first third of the exhale, the chest should collapse, and then the last 2/3 of the exhale, the belly should collapse. Another thing is that a lot of people are only going to breathe in 2D, and you want to breathe in 3D. What I mean by that is most people only breathe front to back. Ideally, at the end of your inhale, you should have some lateral expansion of the rib cage, and you should also have some vertical expansion as well. So what you would want to do is find ways to correct that by really focusing on doing some diaphragmatic breathing exercises. And I'm going to include a link right up over here to another video I made on having an inverted breathing pattern. But if your breathing is good, a second possibility why you may have low energy, and this should be a given, is that your sleeping habits are off. With regard to sleep, ideally you would want to get somewhere around the 7 to 9 hour range of sleep. You can get less than that and still function optimally, but it's going to be very, very rare. Only about 3 to 5% of the population can function optimally on less than 6 hours sleep. So unless you are a genetic outlier, you're really going to want to get more than that, and you want to make sure that your sleep is going to be optimized. With regard to sleep, one of the reasons why it's so important is if you're not getting enough sleep, then what's going to happen is your ghrelin, which is your hunger hormone, is going to be elevated. And when ghrelin is elevated, it's going to cause you to crave high-calorie dense foods. And also, it's been linked to poor decision-making. So if you're not sleeping well, the chances of you either straying from the diet or just eating things that you normally wouldn't eat are going to increase exponentially. So you would want to make sure you get a good sleep. That way you can be better prepared and better equipped to make better decisions throughout the rest of the day. Another thing is when you don't get enough sleep, if you do this for a prolonged period of time, your insulin sensitivity is going to decrease, and also your testosterone levels are going to decrease. When your insulin sensitivity decreases, it's going to make it a lot easier for you to store fat, as insulin is your main fat storage hormone. And when your testosterone decreases, your energy levels will suffer, because one of the side effects of having low testosterone is low energy. So make sure that you're getting enough sleep. That way you're able to make better decisions. You're not going to be starving all the time, and your testosterone is going to be optimized, which is going to give you better energy. With regard to sleep, some ways that you could optimize your sleep. Number 1, have a bedtime ritual. Ideally, every single night you want to be able to do the exact same thing. That way you could kind of calm your mind down and be able to get into that parasympathetic state and have a nice deep sleep. Some of the things that you could do, number 1, ideally, you want to make sure that the room is pitch black. If the room is pitch black, it's going to be much easier for you to sleep. Number 2, if you sleep in a cool room, it's going to be a lot easier for you to fall asleep and a lot better for you, and it's going to be easier for you to get a nice deep sleep. And then the third thing that you could do is make sure that you have absolutely no electronics in the bedroom whatsoever. There have been multiple studies that show that if you're on your phone before bed, or even if you're on your phone and it's on airplane mode, your delta brainwaves, which are the best predictors of sleep quality, are going to be suppressed for up to 2 hours, even on airplane mode. So you want to make sure that there are no electronics in the bedroom. Then the third thing that you could do if your breathing mechanics are good and your sleep is already optimized would be good stress management techniques. With regard to stress management, a lot of people overlook this because they only think of mental stressors, but we actually have multiple different stressors. We have physical stressors, mental, nutritional, chemical, thermal, electromagnetic stressors. And in terms of stress, on a physiological basis, our body cannot differentiate between these different types of stressors. So whether we are physically stressed because we did a 5-hour workout that our bodies were not capable of handling, or whether we're mentally stressed because we have a deadline at work and we need to get it done right away or we could get fired, or if we have nutritional stressors such as we're not eating the foods that are right for our body is going to react the exact same way. Our body is going to secrete the hormone cortisol, which is our stress hormone. And if cortisol is chronically elevated, that is definitely going to hinder your energy level. So you want to make sure that those 6 stressors are all under check. And once again, with regard to high cortisol, you're going to be less insulin sensitive, which means it's going to be easier for you to store fat, and you're going to have lower testosterone levels, which means your energy levels are going to be suppressed. So make sure that you really manage those 6 stressors. Next, if all of those things are good, the fourth possibility of why you may have low energy is that your food intake is off a little bit. With regard to food intake, some people are going to do well on high fat, low protein. Some are going to do well on high protein, low fat. And then some are going to do well on a balance of fat and protein. You need to experiment with each. If people are telling you, you need to do high fat, you need to do high fat, you need to do high fat, don't listen to them. Their body is different from yours. You want to see what works for you. Me personally, I do really well on high fat, and I don't do well when I do high protein and low fat, but that's just me. You may be different. You may be one of those people who does very well on high protein, low fat. So what I would recommend for you is do 1 week, 25% fat, 75% protein. Keep a food journal, see how exactly you feel, how's your mental clarity, how are your energy levels, how's your weight, and then for 1 week you could do a 50-50 split of protein to fat. Then for 1 week you could do a 25-75 in the opposite direction. You could do 25% protein and then 75% fat and see how you feel. Whichever one you feel the best on, that should be the type of diet that you're going to be following. Don't listen to people who say you need to do high protein, you need to do high fat, you need to do an even balance of both. Do what works for you, and the only way you could figure out what works for you is by experimenting through trial and error. Then another thing that we could do, number 5, is going to be your water intake. With regard to water intake, everybody is going to have a different amount that their body is going to require. There's no one right amount for every single person. With regard to the right amount for you, as a baseline, you want to start with half your body weight in pounds in ounces. So however much you weigh in pounds, half of that in ounces is how much you should be drinking throughout the day. That's going to be your baseline. And then certain factors are going to dictate whether you need more or less water. One of them is going to be environmental factors. If it is very, very cold and you're outside and you're not really sweating a whole lot, you're not losing water through the act of perspiration, so you won't require quite as much. Whereas if it's a really, really hot day and you're outside and you're being active and you're sweating a lot, when you sweat a lot, you're losing water, so you want to replenish that water by consuming more water. So on really, really hot days when you're sweating a lot, you would want to consume more than half your body weight in ounces. Another thing is geography. Your geographical location is going to dictate how much water you need. If you're closer to the poles, it's going to be very, very cold. So like with the weather, because you're in a colder climate, you're generally not going to need as much water because you're not going to be sweating as much. Whereas when you are closer to the equator, it's a lot hotter. You're going to be outside a lot more. You're going to be sweating a lot more. So your water requirements are going to be elevated a little bit more, and you're going to want to get a little bit more water. And then another thing with regard to water is you don't want to drink naked water. What I mean by that is something like distilled water. You want to have some type of minerals in there, because when you do sweat, you are not just losing water, you're also losing all of the electrolytes. So all of the minerals that are in that water are being excreted through your sweat glands. And one of the things that we could do to replenish that is add Himalayan salt and some electrolytes to your drinking water. If you don't want to add that, you don't have to. What you can do is get some water with a high mineral count. Ideally, you should have 300 parts per million or higher in your drinking water. If you have more than 300 parts per million, then you wouldn't really need to add electrolytes or salt, but you still can. And in terms of how much salt and how much electrolytes you should add, with regard to the salt, it should be just enough that you cannot taste the salt in the water. If you can taste the salt, then you've added way too much and you need to back it off the next time. And then the last thing would be your activity level. With regard to activity level, This one over here, a lot of people they get into this false misconception that they just need to do more and more and more and train harder than last time. But the truth is, you need to train according to your physiological stress load. If you're somebody that has a very, very high level of physiological stress, then ideally you would want to minimize your training to where you're doing more exercises that are very, very low intensity and not too high. Because if you're already physiologically stressed, your body's going to be secreting cortisol. And then if you do very vigorous activity on top of that, your cortisol levels are going to be even higher, which is going to make things even worse. So if you're someone who is very, very physically stressed, then ideally you would want to do lower intensity exercise and build up until you can tolerate those higher intensity exercises. And then on the opposite side, if you're somebody where you have no physiological stress whatsoever, you can handle more vigorous activity. So you would want to do things that are a little bit more intense. I'm going to include a link right up over here to a video I made last year called How Hard Should I Train? You could check that out in terms of figuring out how hard exactly you should train. But those are some things in terms of your energy production and why exactly you may have low energy. And then with the last part of the question, why am I not losing weight? This one, it's all going to come down to calories in, calories out. There's absolutely no way around that. If you're in a caloric deficit, you're going to lose weight. If you're in a caloric surplus, you're going to gain weight. And if the amount of calories that you take in is equal to that of your total daily energy expenditure, your weight is going to stay exactly the same. And that is a simple fact. Don't listen to people who say that calories don't matter on this way of eating. You could just eat whatever the hell you want. And as long as all you're eating is meat, you're never going to gain any fat. You're only going to gain muscle, because those people don't know what the hell they're talking about. All you have to do is ask yourself this one question. If calories truly don't matter, and if all I eat is meat, I'm going to automatically lose weight, have great energy, and blah, 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 then if I consume 10,000 calories of ribeye steak, there should be no difference whatsoever than if I were to consume 2,000 calories of ribeye steak. Does that make any sense whatsoever? Do you think that you could consume 5 times more food and there won't be any noticeable change in how you feel or how your body reacts to it? No, that's absolutely ridiculous. So don't listen to people. If you are not losing weight, it's because you're not in a caloric deficit. And what you want to do is figure out which foods will make it easiest for you to be in a caloric deficit. For some people, it's going to be high protein foods. For some people, it's going to be high fat foods. For some people, it's going to be that 50-50 split of an even split between protein and fat. But you're going to have to experiment, see what works for you. But that's pretty much it for today's video. If you have any questions at all, go ahead and ask them down in the comment section and give me your thoughts on this video. What did you guys think? Or how's your breathing mechanics? How's your sleep habits? How's your stress? How's your activity level? I would love to hear your guys' thoughts, but that's pretty much it for today's video. If you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to smash that like button so I know to keep making these types of videos in the future. And if you're either new to the channel or haven't subscribed yet, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell, as I will be uploading new videos every single day. That's it for today's video. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you again tomorrow.